Hi, Floppycatters. Today I'm very excited to introduce you to Mark Wilson of Killz. Mark, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I was introduced to your product in late February when I was doing a search on Amazon looking for a flea yard spray. Now I know that you kind of focus on ticks and mosquitoes, but then I saw that it was good for fleas as well, and so that's why I pulled the plug and purchased it. Since then, I've had multiple conversations with you, and I'm very, very grateful for your product because I just counted, I have applied it 7 times, and so far we are good to go. And as you know, but I want everyone watching that doesn't know, I have a almost 15-year-old ragdoll cat who has flea allergy dermatitis. So if a flea gets on him or bites him, he goes berserk. And I cannot use a topical flea medication because he got a head trimmer from me using those. So about 2 years ago, we detoxed from all of that, and I have to go the natural approach. So I've had flea infestations in 18 months. And during that time, I kind of figured out a plan. And one of the things is 95% of a flea population is in the environment, whether that's in your home or in your yard. So I wanted to tackle my yard at the beginning of flea season, and then that's when I started using tick kills. I wanted to start out with an understanding of how tick kills came about. What's your background? Why did you
Sure.
make it?
Okay. Yeah, and just to be clear on that earlier point there, we tend to market our product as a tick and mosquito control product. That's more of a marketing angle than anything because we know that most people are concerned about ticks and mosquitoes because of the viruses that either one of them can carry, and obviously we know they're potentially dangerous to humans. So yes, we are effective against other nuisance insects like fleas, gnats, and other things. So there's a whole host of insects on the label that we will treat for, and we will have success with. But as we said, we tend to market it as a flea and tick. So I mean, as a tick and mosquito. So about me, I've spent the first 25 years of my career with two large pharmaceutical companies, Warner Lambert and Novartis. And after 25 years of doing that, and always being on the consumer side of the business, I should throw that in there. After 25 years of that, I needed a mental break. I needed to do something different and get out of corporate America. It will grind you down after a while. So I did some entrepreneurial things. I did short-term consulting. I worked for a woman that I actually used to work with in Warner Lambert, helped her launch a line of supports and braces for women that was highly successful. And then met a gentleman in the landscape industry, and we became friendly. And around that time, there was a product that had come onto the market called Tick Free, I believe. And it was what we thought was a great idea, but a poor execution. It just wasn't a well-made product, blah, blah, blah. I won't bore you with the details. So we were sitting around one day and said, we could make something better than that, having no background whatsoever in manufacturing or chemistry of any kind. So we were lucky enough to get with a really good partner early on, company here in New Jersey. That's a global supplier of all kinds of products, fragrances, things like that. They've been in business for over 70 years. They have a full team of chemists that are available to us. So anyway, long story short, we bought some initial raw materials from them. We toyed around with some different concepts of formulations that we thought would work based on what we knew about ticks and mosquitoes and what other people were looking to try and do. And of course, the goal from day one was to be all natural, chemical free, because let's face it, the world's going green. Everyone's hopping on board at their own rate. But we just, if you've got kids or pets or both, I don't know why you'd want a single chemical in your yard that you're spending time in all the time. So that was our objective. And after a fairly long period of trial and error, and then testing ourselves within our lab and then also out in the field, we settled on the formulation that today is Tick Killz. It consistently performed the best out of everything we created. And then we extended our partnership with that company that helped us very early on, and they now make the product for us because one thing I learned early on in the pharmaceutical industry is that quality control is job 1 through 10, and everything else falls kind of behind that. So we now, even though we're a small company, we now have the benefit of a large company making it for us, giving us the quality control reports that we want, and giving us, most importantly, the satisfaction of knowing that every batch is the same. It has to meet high quality standard controls. And if it's not, it's rejected and they do it again. So we just know that we're putting a consistently good product out in the market on a regular basis.
That's a really neat story too. As an entrepreneur, I love to hear entrepreneurial stories. So thank you for sharing. So I wanted to move into how well the product performs and safety stuff. Can you elaborate on the specific types of ticks, mosquitoes, and fleas that it tackles, please?
Yeah, and I can probably only speak intelligently about the ticks and the mosquitoes more so than the fleas. I don't know how many different variety of fleas there are, but let's start with the ticks and mosquitoes. For the ticks, we tested our product against 4 different types of ticks: deer tick, dog tick, lone star tick, and brown tick. And male, female, all different life stages and sizes, and had great success against all of them. And I don't think there's that much difference between other species that you might encounter, but those predominantly that covers the majority of what most people would probably deal with in their environment. So that's how we did the ticks. The mosquito, same sort of thing. Now that does vary a little bit by geographical location, but for the most part, up in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and the large area up in the upper half of the U.S., where we did most of our trial year. 2 types of mosquitoes are the Aedes and the Culex. So we consider, and we talk about the Aedes being the ground level ones that are in your shrubs and the mulch beds and stuff like that. The Culex are the ones that tend to be in the low canopies of the trees. They're higher up. Those are the ones that will end up biting the birds and sometimes contracting stuff that way. So that's typically what you're going to. And then when you get down south, we have the dreaded no-see-ums, which are extremely, extremely difficult to deal with. And so, I mean, chemicals and all natural alike have issues with them, but that's pretty much what you're going to come in contact with. And as far as we know, we didn't do any extensive testing on fleas. We just did field testing and knew that, the ones that are common that you're going to find on your dog or your cat, that we were successful against that. So like I said, there could be many more species that I'm not aware of. And there's also many more species of tick and mosquito. It's just that we're not likely to see them in a lot of the geographical areas within the U.S.
Yes. So I have somewhat of an ignorant question. How do they go about finding all those species? Like, is there somebody out there that's collecting those different tick species?
Yeah, I mean, we found them oddly enough. You said you like good entrepreneurial stories. When we started this process, we needed ticks to test our product on. So we were able to order them from Oklahoma State University.
Oh,
So we would order batches of 100 ticks at a time so that we had ticks to be able to do our lab testing. And then, of course, it was easier once we moved outdoors to try. But yeah, I don't know who I'm sure there's entomologists and other people that are heavily into the research side of what we
yes.
deal with. And these are the people that, do all this work and tell us all the different species. And, I mean, thank God for them. That helps us tremendously. But yeah, it's more than I could deal with. Let's put it that way.
Yes. I mean, 100 ticks, my skin would be crawling because
Yeah.
our dogs got ticks when I was a kid and but still, I mean, the ticks have arrived in the mail.
Exactly. It was
Yeah.
a big day in the office when their shipment of ticks arrived. Exactly right.
Yes, that's great. How long does the product remain effective after application?
So when you spray, you will get knocked down. It's admittedly a short window of knockdown. So you either have to hit the insect directly with the material when you spray, or the insect has to migrate through the material, get it on them before it fully dries. On a normal day, it probably takes 45 minutes to an hour to dry. Then once it dries, you will get on average 4 weeks of residual repellent benefit after each application. That is an average. It tends to be a little bit longer for tick and a little bit less for mosquito, predominantly because there's certain issues with the mosquitoes that make them much more difficult over time to repel. They're airborne, they reproduce so rapidly. There's generally speaking so many of them available on a given piece of property versus a tick, and there's on and on. So on average 4 weeks to answer your question, and that will be mostly dependent upon the amount of precipitation and rainfall that you get during that time frame. So normal amount of rainfall in a given month, no problem, you'll get the full month. A lot of downpour, heavy rain, you'll get a little less. If it's very dry, you'll get a little more, but we just say on average about 4 weeks.
Okay. And you and I spoke about my concerns with my sprinklers and whether or not that would, deteriorate the effectiveness.
Yeah, and that again, irrigation systems put more moisture in the landscape. So, it's if you're running them every day, depends on how frequently, but if you're then I would simply calculate that in and go, okay, when you turn on your system and now for the next several weeks, months, it's going to be running. When you do that next application, I would just apply it a little bit heavier so that it helps compensate for the fact that you're going to get a little bit more precipitation during that time frame.
Yes. Okay. And then we also spoke about one side of my backyard. I have a neighbor whose lawn care company likes to blow a lot of their leaves into my yard, even though it's a 6-foot fence. And you suggested that I just spray that side a little more heavily.
Yes, I would spray, because I think as you described it, they were kind of coming under the fence. So I would spray heavily on the bottom, and on your side of the property, I would spray heavily on the fence there in the bottom there to hopefully prevent them, so if they do get in, they're going to smell that cedar oil and hopefully get right back out.
Yes, yes. So as far as safety with pets and children, you mentioned that on a regular day it would drive between 45 minutes and an hour later. I don't let my cats out if it is wet. What do you guys suggest?
Yeah, so here's what we suggest, and I'll explain why we suggest that. So theoretically, you could spray and you could let kids, pets, anybody into that area right away. It's not a safety issue of any kind. It's not going to harm anyone or anything. The reason why we don't want to do that is because of that valuable residual repellent benefit that you get. So when you spray, if you think about it, you want it to dry where you sprayed, because that's how you're going to get the full value. So as my mom used to say when we were kids, you're traipsing stuff all around through the house so you don't want that. You don't want the pets or the kids to traipse it all around and remove it from where you sprayed because you want to get that full 4 weeks of residual. So all we suggest is let it dry. Give it 1 hour's time until it fully dries, and then you can go roll in the grass. You can do whatever you want. It's not going to harm you. And like I said, you could do it immediately after if you wanted to, but then all that material is going to be on you or the pet, or a lot of it anyway, instead of being in the environment where we want it.
Yes. So are there any known side effects or environmental concerns associated with tick kills? And we also spoke about pollinators, so if you could touch on that too, please.
Yeah, so there's no concern. So our product, in addition to being all natural, our product is considered by the EPA to be 25B exempt. And what that simply means is, first and foremost, it's not a registered chemical. It's not a restricted use product that you have to have a license for to purchase, and that most likely has potentially harmful side effects to it. It's a perfectly safe product. And the way you become 25B exempt is actually very simple. EPA is kind enough to publish a list of active and inert ingredients that have been truly tested over time and proven to be perfectly safe. So if you create a product using nothing but ingredients from their 25B exempt active ingredient list and their 25B exempt inert ingredient list, then you automatically qualify as 25B exempt. So anyone can go and pull it up. You can just Google it, EPA 25B exempt ingredients, active, inert, and you'll see the full list of ingredients that are on each of those separate lists. And you'll see all of our ingredients are on one or the other. There's 3 actives and 1 inert in ours, so obviously 3 are on the active. And so they've done all the work for us, which is nice and just makes it a lot easier. And so we therefore know that it's perfectly safe, not just for kids and pets, it's safe for the environment. And then to get to the second part of your question, the way it's safe for pollinators is, and we do have to explain this a little bit because it does require a certain amount of common sense, right? So the first piece of that common sense is that when you spray, you're obviously not trying to spray the beneficials. You're not trying to spray honeybees. You're not trying to spray, a praying mantis or anything else on the property that would be considered beneficial. So that's kind of the first rule of thumb. And as long as you're not trying to spray them, then the minimal amount of drift that's going to get on them while you are spraying is not going to be enough to knock them down and kill them. Now, if you wanted to kill a bee with our material, you absolutely could. You would spray it directly with the material. You would knock it down because obviously that moisture would create a heavier weight for the insect, knock it to the ground, and then you would continue to saturate it until it finally succumbed to that. Now, that's no different, quite honestly, from you can drown a bee doing the exact same thing with water. So knock it down, continually saturate it, and it will drown and it will die. So that's kind of what we're saying, is that if you use the product according to label, mix, and app recommendations, and you don't go out there and intentionally try to harm the honeybees, then they're going to be perfectly safe around our product. And we have a number of customers across the US that have honeybee farms. They spray their property. There's absolutely no issues, and they get absolutely great results. And obviously you wouldn't spray it into the hive.
Right.
Another common sense piece of advice.
Yes, yes. Have there been any independent studies conducted to verify the efficacy and safety claims of tick kills?
Yeah, we're trying to get another one done. So initially we did 2 forms of study for the tick. We did our own lab studies, and we published the results of that. It's available to anybody that wants to see it. We had great success rate in the lab then. We did it externally. We did several different areas up in Connecticut. Drag test before, sprayed, results after, drag test. Had very good feedback, very good results. We also, as much as we like to do testing and probably are going to do another round of tick testing, and I agree that people could argue that it's maybe overly intuitive on our part, but we also have very large national, very large regional customers that have been using our product for over 10 years, easily. And their business keeps growing every year. Why? Because they sign up new customers. They provide spray service to consumers like you and I. And they just keep signing up new customers because obviously the existing ones come back and repeat, and then they get new ones because either word of mouth or marketing or whatever they do. And, call me crazy, but I'm just completely convinced that if it wasn't effective, there's no way in the world that these people would still be using the product after 10 years to the level that they are. I mean, I can tell you there's literally hundreds of thousands of properties across the US sprayed with our product every year. And we get nothing but fantastic feedback. And then on top of that, we get a lot of tremendous, anecdotal feedback. So for example, I'll just give you one quick one, because you said with the cat. So we locally, landscaper, a friend of mine uses the product, loves it. Friend of his was having all kinds of problems. He and his wife just had their first child, and they had 4 dogs. And every day they were picking multiple ticks off of each dog every day. So as you can imagine, the wife was just going absolutely bonkers because he's out working all day long. And she's got a new baby, and she's afraid, A, the dogs are going to get sick from Lyme disease from a tick bite. B, the dogs are going to bring him in the house, and the ticks are going to get on the new infant. So every day it was just a horror story. So he happens to have a conversation with my friend. Long story short, like, look, I use this product. I think it works great. Says, say no more. Please come spray my yard, put a bill in the mailbox, and everything's fine. So I get a phone call, I don't know, 6 weeks later on a Monday morning at some ridiculous hour, like 6:45 in the morning. You know, these guys are early birds. I
Uh-huh.
pick up the phone because I'm concerned that someone's calling me that early. And my friend says, look, I just got to call you and tell you, I just got off the phone with the landscape guy and he said, it's been 5 weeks now, and they have not picked a single tick off a single dog in 5 weeks. So he said, you can tell me that's coincidence until the cows come home. But, if that's not proof that your product works, I don't know what is. And they're ecstatic. They're happy. The landscaper's happy because, of course, he's telling that story left and right to everybody he's trying to get on board. And it's that kind of anecdotal, feedback that we
Mhm.
get all the time that just reinforces that the product works extremely
Yes, yes. And not only that, but the relief that that family has now, because
well. Oh, absolutely.
that's what I need. So,
Absolutely.
yes.
Well, and look, we try not to, hype it too much, but this is serious stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
we focus on this. We take it very seriously. I attend at least a dozen trade shows a year. I could just tell you one horror story after the other of how Lyme's disease, in particular, has absolutely devastated people's lives to the point where you just almost can't believe that that happens from a little tick bite.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, so we look at it and we say, if we can prevent 1 or 10 or 100 people, pets, from getting Lyme's disease, we're very happy about that. And like I said, we take that very seriously because of all the stories that we hear from the people that we interact with over the years. And it's, like I said, it can be absolutely devastating for people. What it wreaks havoc in the immune system is just unbelievable.
Yes. Yes.
So
And that's what fleas do to my cat. And then neither one of
exactly. So
us sleep. And then you are vacuuming every day and you don't get anything done. And it's just
no,
awful.
it just
So, but
completely turns your life upside down.
it does. It's miserable. Okay. So what is the recommended application method for tick kills? I do have a video on how I do it. So I'll link
Sure.
that in the description, but
Again, it just depends on you, what type of individual you are. So, you can buy a piece of equipment and you can apply it yourself, or you can have a landscape professional or a tree care specialist or a pest control company. They can all, most all these people now come and offer a tick and or a mosquito or flea application program that you could take advantage of, and they provide the equipment. Um, if you're providing your own equipment, you can use anything from a backpack sprayer all the way on up to a tank sprayer. So, most people aren't going to have a tank sprayer available to them, or some of these other things. So I would say kind of the bare minimum, unless you have a very small piece of property, the bare minimum you want to do is a backpack sprayer, because at least you can be walking, pumping, and spraying all at the same time. So it's not going to take you forever. Obviously, if you have a smaller hand pump one, you got to put that thing down, you got to pump it up, spray it, and then do, repeat, rinse, and repeat. If you're doing it for a small piece of property, you could probably get away with it. But what we did was, and then there's another piece of equipment which is fantastic. It's called a mist blower. So that's a newer piece of equipment. It's basically a pack back blower with a tank mounted on top of it, and then there's a tube that runs down into the wand, and the liquid comes down, the air blasting out sends it out in fine particles. So that's really, really nice, and that's become the preferred way to do mosquito treatments. But again, if you don't want to go out and spend $700 on a mist blower and you just want to keep it as simple as possible, either get yourself a simple backpack sprayer, or what we created was we have an 8-ounce hose end spray size, and I think that's might have been part of the video that you saw. Actually, that video is on our website. But you can just go and hook that up to your garden hose. Virtually everyone has a garden hose, and then it turns your garden hose into a tank sprayer. So if you had fairly decent water pressure, you can do a third of an acre, even up like a half it, very, very efficiently, very effectively, and in a time, not very time consuming way.
yes, I've
I'm going to
timed
get a
it.
drink.
Okay. I've
allergy
timed it. It
season.
takes me 30 minutes to do my yard with the hose and sprayer.
Yeah, I have 3/4 of an acre. I use it myself because we get great water pressure. And I was gonna say same thing. It takes me 30, maybe max 40. And I think the reason why it takes me longer is I have about half of my property borders a wood line.
Mm.
So I spend a little bit more time. Never have to go in the woods because I don't want to deal with the ticks, but I can stand right on the edge of my property and shoot a full 20, 25 feet into the woods to sort of push everything back away from my property. And then that just reduces the possibility that something's going to be coming through, the superhighway.
Yes. And I do want to point out too that your hose and sprayer is the best I've ever had. Not only is it super lightweight, which is really nice, but also it just sprays better. It's easier to handle. Yeah, I don't have to mix solution with water and figure
Nope.
that all out. It's perfect.
No,
Love
it
it.
does it by all by itself. And again, we that's why when we put on the label, everything is an average because it depends on your water pressure and everything else. But either way, it's still a very cost-effective way to do your yard. And the worst case scenario is it's going to either empty a little quicker or empty a little slower, and then you just have to adjust for that as you're doing the spraying. And it's real simple. Turn it off, take the cap off, refill it with a larger size, put it back. So the best part about it is you can reuse that spray unit.
Yes, yes. And that's what I wish I would have done when I started. I've told you this, but I wish I would have started with your hose and sprayer, but I was like, oh, I don't need a hose and sprayer. I have, two that I already use.
Sure.
But if I had started there and then, bought the gallon material after that, then that would have been better. Are there specific weather conditions that would affect the effectiveness of tick kills where you wouldn't want to apply it?
Yes, great question. So generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, once you spray the material and it fully dries, then it really does not matter whether the next rain event is an hour later, a day later, a week later, or a month later. All it simply means is that's going to start the process of washing the material away. All right. So obviously you'd like it to hold off a little bit. I don't know about you where you live, but in New Jersey, forget it. I mean, it's just so rainy. It seems like that's all we get. We're like the new Seattle now. But anyway, you just want to let it dry. So if you are ready to apply to your property and you think it's going to rain, we talked earlier about it taking about an hour to dry. If you think you're going to get a rain event within that hour, then do not apply, because if the material has not dried, it will wash away. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to waste your time and energy to spray and have it simply washed away. So that's all you really have to deal with is it going to rain within an hour or so? And if it's not, you're good to go. If you think it might or it will, I would hold off until you have a larger window of opportunity where you know it's going to have a chance to fully dry. That's it. That's the only guideline.
Okay, so like it's supposed to rain here, thunderstorms tomorrow, but it's beautiful here today.
Right.
So,
So no problem. You could spray today, no problem.
okay. That's good to know because I'm gonna mow my lawn after this. And I like to spray it after I've mowed my lawn because fleas hate UV light, so I want to keep my lawn short, and then
Sure.
also that allows the product to penetrate into the yard more, correct? If the
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It just clean. It's always better to apply in a cleaner environment. I mean, so
Yeah.
mowing and remove leaf litter, do any of the potential hot spots that you identify on your property. If you clean that up first before you spray, you're going to get better results. It's that simple.
Yes, yes. I have worked hard on making sure my backyard where my cats go is very clean because of all of
Good.
that leaf litter. Can tick kills be used on different surfaces, lawns, gardens, patios, etc.?
Yes, we've tested it on virtually everything you could find in a property. So we know it dries clear. We know it won't stain. You can windows, siding, pavers, concrete, doesn't matter. Foundation, it just doesn't matter. We've sprayed it on fiberglass boats in people's backyards. We've sprayed it on, like I said, just about everything you can encounter. And we've never, in 12 years, have never had an issue. No one's ever contacted us and said it was a problem. So we're absolutely fine there.
Okay. And yes, and that's one thing is I don't think people realize that for fleas specifically, it's not going to hurt because you don't know if you have eggs and larvae. So you hit your patio, hit your
Yep,
trees, hit everything that you can. Does tick kills require reapplication at regular intervals? If so, how often? We kind of touched on that with the 4 weeks.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, I would say again, depending on where you are in the US, but I would say on average, most tick application programs are 4 times a year. Most mosquito ones are 6 times a year. The tick ones are typically, April through October, but Mother Nature throws us curveballs, and sometimes you're required to spray sooner, spray later, depending on the weather. And mosquitoes are typically May through October as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's just, again, that's an average. You're free to spray it as often as you like. It's not going to hurt anything. But we do know, we understand that there's economics involved here as well. So it's, what you're comfortable with, what the traffic will bear. But I think at the end of the day, it's a reasonable insurance policy to help eliminate and help you and your family and your pets avoid any issues with any of the insects that you want to, get under control.
Okay. Are there any specific safety precautions that users should take when applying tick kills?
The only thing we put on the label, some of the states are just, very specific about it. You should wear gloves, I guess. I don't wear them, but the only thing I wear when I spray really is eye goggles. Because I'm just one of those people that will accidentally walk into the tree branch and scratch my cornea. And, all I was trying to do is treat my yard and I end up with a major problem. So I tend to put, some safety goggles on. Beyond that, and in allergy season, like early late season, I might put a dust mask on. Yeah, it depends on how much wind is blowing as well. I will tell you, cedar oil tastes god awful, so you don't ever want it to blow back into your mouth. So depending on my allergy conditions or the wind, how strong the wind is, and if it's too strong, you don't apply. But sometimes I'll put a dust mask on, but that's it. That's pretty much all I do.
What differentiates tick kills from other yard spray control products on the market, specifically the natural ones?
Yeah, I would say I think what differentiates us and makes us, in most instances, at least the ones I'm aware, more effective is the ingredient profile. So cedar oil, when we undertook this adventure, we did a lot of research up front. And we found that by far cedar oil is the most widely accepted, widely recognized, all natural insect repellent of the essential oils that are available to do so and to do
Yeah.
such. Um, and it's very durable. It lasts longer than a lot of others. So there are other essential oils that are effective. For example, garlic oil can be very effective when it's sprayed, but it doesn't last. So you get one heavy rainfall and it's gone. So most people can't rely on an opportunity to respray every week, depending on where you are and how often you get rain. Um, so we just found that the cedar oil is just a very durable. It's the anchor ingredient in our product for a reason. You can find a lot of stories and feedback on how it's been used over the years. I wasn't aware until we did our research that for decades people with horses have used cedar oil to wipe the horses down in the summertime to keep the flies off them because the flies will drive them crazy. So stuff like that. So I think that's one key piece of differentiation. The other next one is we tend to have we have the right level of ingredients, but we tend to have the most amount of active ingredients per 1,000 square foot of application. And where there might be one or two kind of exemptions to that, there are products like there is a product out there with 85% cedar oil in it. Problem with that is too much is not good. So you
Mm.
can't apply it in over 85-degree temperatures, which could rule out a significant amount of application time frame during the summer, depending on where you live and how hot it gets. So that's an issue. So we have enough in there to do what we wanted to do, which is to, repel the insect, but not too much where it's going to create some issues. So we think we have a good blend there. We tend to be the most cost effective, and you have to break everything down on a cost per thousand. And the reason why I say that is you'll never find us in a Home Depot or places like that, because they have products that sit on their shelf that are 15, 16, $17, and they might cover 5,000 square feet, and they might have 1% of active ingredients, which is the equivalent of spraying water. And so our product for, our 8 ounce, it might retail at a Home Depot for $45. And someone will look at that and say, well, look, that's 3 times more expensive than the $15 one. I'm not going to, the $15 one's going to do nothing. The reason why ours is 3 times more is because you get 54% of active ingredients. And when you spray it, like you've seen, it's actually going to do something. So it's the old adage, right? You get what you pay for, which is important. But you just have to, if you're going to go through the trouble, you might as well get some results, and you might as well pay a little bit more for something that's actually going to be effective.
Yes. You mentioned to me that there are certain products on the market that can only be applied like 80 degrees and below. And in the middle of the summer, especially I'm in Kansas City,
Right.
we're in the hundreds. So
Yep.
Killz doesn't have those limitations. Is that correct?
No, we've tested Killz at both extremes of weather, chart. So extreme heat and extreme cold, and we've had no issues whatsoever. You do, again, going kind of back to the common sense thing. Sometimes, as you've probably witnessed with those types of, hot days in the summer, when you get to the dog days of summer, inevitably someone's going to go out. They're going to spray tick kills, and it's a week of 90-degree plus every day, no rainfall, and obviously everything in the landscape is under stress, right? You need water, you need less, and so they'll spray, and then something will start browning, and they'll blame it on tick kills, and it's not tick kills' fault. It's the heat and the lack of water. That's so, just again, common sense. If you recognize those times, and you're just not out there adding to the stress, then you're fine. You're absolutely fine. It's just no issues on either end, like I said, of the spectrum.
Is Tick Killz targeted towards a specific customer segment, like pet owners, or I mean, it seems like it's used commercially or
Yeah,
residentially.
I mean, right now we're trying to target it to everybody, but that's not really practical at this moment. Our core customer right now is that I said earlier, the landscape professional, the tree care professional, or the pest control professional that goes out and offers a service to their customer base to do the spraying for them. Because those are the ones that obviously they sign up a lot of customers. Those are the people that are buying it in bulk.
Yes.
But again, we created the 8 ounce hose and spray because we wanted to make sure that the do-it-yourselfer had a way to go if they wanted to do it themselves. But we're trying to reach out to really everybody that we can. I mean, we've grown a bit over the past 12 years, and we're trying to bring some additional resources in this year to target where we believe there's tremendous extra opportunity. So you brought up the whole pet industry. That's another huge area to deal with, either veterinarians or pet stores and other, we're trying to participate in pet expos that get us access because, again, look, pets are like family members. So, you want to treat that, you want to make their environment as safe as you would for your kids.
Yes.
And so we're trying to, come up with ways to do that. And then there's, tremendous additional opportunities through municipalities, recreational. I mean, any place, if you think about it, any place where people congregate, where there could be ticks, mosquitoes, other health issues or potential health issues with insects, you can't spray a chemical anymore.
Right.
The liability is just outrageous. So you can't run the risk of someone coming up sick and then blaming it on it. So you have to go all natural. And so it's still a problem that you need to deal with. So why not deal with it in an all natural way? So we're trying to tackle some of those things, and we've had some success, but just not on a large scale yet. So we're hoping that'll change over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, that'd be great. I wish that companies here that spray nasty chemicals would spray tick kills.
Yep.
That would be great for everybody.
Yeah, we just have to get it, again, for a lot of people, well, number one, it is kind of a chemical industry and has been so for many, many decades. But, more importantly, is the chemical tends to be cheaper. And sometimes people, it's just easier to go the cheap route. And I look, they're free to do what they want to do. I try and convince people that spray nothing but chemicals is simply added as a service offering. Just have the conversation with the customer, because at the end of the day, if someone's going to charge you $100 to spray a half acre or more of your property with a chemical, it might only be $110 if you sprayed it with an all natural product like Killz. And I would be willing to argue that an overwhelming majority of people would pay the extra $10 to know that the product that's being used is perfectly safe for them and their families.
Yes. Yes. So that's one of the things I have to worry about too, is why I said that, is if my neighbors right next door or behind me are spraying the chemicals, I don't want my cats to get in touch with those either. So
Sure.
it is a problem.
It is a
Uh,
problem. Yep.
yeah.
And it's important to know when you're in close proximity to your neighbors like that, it's important to know what they're doing and what they're using, because, the hair in the back of my neck stands up when the True Green or the other truck pulls up to my neighbor's yard and they start unreeling that hose, because I have no idea what they're spraying. And to your point, I just don't want it coming into my yard unless I knew for a fact that it was perfectly safe.
Yes. Yes. So you touched on this when you did the Home Depot example, but how does Tick Kills compare price wise to competing products?
Well, like I said, you have to get away from looking at the product and the sticker price of the product, and you have to break it down to a cost per 1,000 square foot coverage. So I'll give you an example of why that's important. So there's a product available that comes in a gallon size, and I did this comparison several years ago, but at the time I did the comparison, the competitor's 1 gallon product costs $75. Our 64-ounce container, which is a half gallon, cost $150. So I can't tell you how many times I had the conversation with people telling me that the 1 gallon competitive product is way cheaper than mine, because it's obvious. It's twice as much product for half the price. So when you look at it that way, it's certainly hard to argue it. Here's the problem. You need 3.5 of the 1 gallon container to cover the same amount of area that my 64-ounce half-gallon container covers. So if it's 3.5 to 1, who's really more cost effective? Well, obviously we are at 150, because 3 times 75, you're easily up to 225 and then some. So it's 250 versus 150. So in this industry, you just have to be able to break things down so that you're truly doing an apples to apples. And if you just go by the container price, you're not going to get a true read on what is the best for you and most cost effective.
Right. As far as the future of Tick Kills, do you have any plans to develop new formulations or application methods?
We've so several years ago we had 2 other products on the drawing board, and then we just kind of got together and said there's way too much more we can do at Tick Kills, and I don't want to divert our attention and focus away from this, because we think it's just such a great product, and we still think that there's all kinds of extra demand out there. The only thing that we did experiment with the company, and it didn't work for QC reasons, we couldn't keep the product stable in the wrapper, container, whatever you want to call it. But we do want to come up with a pet product. We actually tested a glove that was pre-treated. You would open up the package, you would slip the glove on, and then you would wipe your pet down before you took it outside for a walk, because obviously you can treat your yard, but like when I had my dog, I'm walking my dog all through the neighborhood, uptown, wherever. So, all bets are off once she's off my property. But if I apply something directly to her, I stand a better chance of keeping her protected when we're outside her normal environment. So we're still looking at that. We'd like to find a partner that we can do something with that. And I've even done with our stuff, with the current product, I've diluted it way beyond what the label says when you spray outdoors, and just put it on a cloth. And I had a golden retriever, and I used to wipe her down with it, and it worked great. the one thing you have to be concerned about with a pet product is because their sense of smell is so much greater than ours is. What you don't want to do is put something on them that's going to drive them crazy that we almost can't even smell.
Yes.
So that's the main concern. So
Yes.
we'll look at that. I think we'll revise that again probably this year, a little more aggressively. But that's if we're going to go to another area, that's really what we want to do. We want something that will help with the pet population.
Yes, that's safe. I will comment that one of mine is very reactive to cedar oil, so I cannot use because they have sprays on the
Yep.
market with cedar oil. As you said, it's one of the most popular. And so that's been nice too, because I had a concern that he'd be reactive once he was out in the yard, and he's not. So
Right.
that's very exciting for me. And that's also why I make sure it's completely dry because I don't want him to have reactions and then I can't use the
Sure.
product and have it be effective. But that's exciting. And also with a cat, a cat cleans its entire body with its tongue, and a dog doesn't really do that. I
Right.
mean, maybe pieces and parts, but so that it's different how you have to approach putting something on a cat versus
Sure.
putting it on a dog.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. So other than that, are there any other visions for the future of tick kills?
You know what? Our vision is the same that it was day one, and that is create awareness of the product, get people to try it and use it because over the years we found that to be the most effective marketing program that we have is if someone gets a sample of it and uses it and tries it, they absolutely love it. And then they typically tend to be ongoing regular customers year after year. So that's all we're trying to do is just create awareness because we know there's a lot of people that still don't know about our product. We know there's a lot of areas in the country that still don't know enough about the product. And so we're just trying to, do what we can to raise the awareness level so people know that there's a great product and a great alternative to the chemicals. And that will not only work, but give them peace of mind.
Yes. So I mentioned this to you, but I want to mention it for those listening. I have, and I'm going to knock wood, seen a
Hmm.
couple of other benefits from it that I wasn't expecting. And that is, I have pastas in my front yard that rabbits just plow down every year,
Sure.
and they're not touching them. And I'm pretty sure it's because of the peppermint oil that they're like, ugh.
Could be. Yeah, it's only a limited amount, but it could very well be the combination of the cedar and the peppermint. Yep.
Yes, and then also those same rabbits who love my yard because there are no dogs. I'm not seeing them in my yard at all, which I love because they love to make nests in my yard, and then we
Sure.
end up with a massacre of babies from my cats. So that has been really nice. And then I also have a humongous silver maple. I mean, it's probably my house was built in 1940 and it was probably planted around then. And that's what happened last year when we got a flea infestation. I'd used nematodes and other yard spray products, and the nematodes got overwhelmed, I believe, from a raccoon bringing her babies through the yard. And the way that I know that they're there are turds in my yard
Sure.
from raccoons, and I haven't seen any. I mean, every day I go out and I'm like, please
Please
no.
don't.
Um, so far so good, and I think that's why I'll probably keep up the spraying even more to keep them thinking that my yard is repulsive.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you ever claim those kind of things, but those are also benefits I've seen from using it.
Yeah, and we probably should dig into that a little bit deeper. I think the most recent exciting thing for us, and we're again looking to try and do an independent study on it, is, and again, I know it's in different parts of the country. It's either a real problem or almost a non-existent one. But the spotted lanternfly has become a very big problem here in the Northeast, and they're just they're very destructive. Everything you read about them is kill them, kill them, kill them. And so we last summer before, actually it was beginning of last summer, I shouldn't say that, had an infestation in my, I mean, I walk out on my deck and I could kill 50 of them within 10 minutes. It was just, they were all over the place, and they tend to congregate on the tree. So I found the tree in my yard where they were all hanging out, and there was hundreds, if not 1,000 of them. So I went in my garage. I just mixed up a little spritzer bottle of I went out there and I sprayed them, and Sure enough, they dropped from the tree. I went, I actually watched some of them perish. Went inside, came back out 15 minutes later, and I think there were two left on the tree. Then I got some plastic containers because there were so many readily available, collected them, did the whole thing, poked holes in there, lifted the lid, did one spray on each lanternfly, and 15 minutes later they were all dead. So that was very good anecdotal feedback, and so I'm looking to see if I can get, because I would love to be able to put that on the label that it's effective against the spotted lanternfly. So again, another way of treating for a problem insect without having to use a chemical.
Yes, yes. I mean, Mark, you had them all in your backyard. You wouldn't even have to go to Oklahoma.
I wouldn't have to order a single one of them.
Mark, this was a treat for me. I know people say those kind of things at the end of an interview, but it really was because I can't tell you how excited I am about this. Every week that goes by that we don't have a problem, and yesterday it rained, and I was like, okay, I'm
There you
gonna
go.
risk it. I'm gonna risk it and not reapply it yet. And Charlie is my barometer, and he has been
There you go.
totally fine. So I really can't thank you. I really hope that it continues to do the job that I think it's going to do. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because if anybody has been in my position, it's just so miserable. And if I can avoid that this year, that's my goal. So thank you.
Well, oh, and thank you, because you're the kind of people that we love to hear from, and not just because you're saying that the product works, but it's a real life story about how we've helped make a difference in your life, and a meaningful one, because your pets are precious, and they're important members of the family for you. And so this is why we do what we do, and we're extremely happy to hear from anyone and everyone that wants to tell us about how they use our product and how effectively it works. Because again, if other people hear this and see this, they may just go ahead and try it and see for themselves how great it works. So thank you so much for all of your feedback, because we've talked quite a few times in the last several weeks. So I truly appreciate you reaching out to me, and appreciate you doing this video, and hopefully we can help more people.
You're welcome. I hope so too. Thank you again.